Namaste gang, hope you're all having a fantastic day today. Today's Masala Guitar is a very special one because my guest today is Raj Makwana. Now most of you guys don't know who Raj is. Some of you might do from my previous videos because I have mentioned him. He's the reason I picked up guitar ever. So I'm speaking to him later and you're going to get to see that a little bit later. And you know what, it was an amazing conversation just about music, about construction of songs and just guitar parts and stuff. Trust me, you're going to want to watch this because the insight which this guy has is just phenomenal. It is really amazing, and it is good spicy masala guitar stuff, man. So today's lick is actually based around some of the concepts which we were talking about, especially the thing about layering multiple guitar parts in order to create this very big sounding whole, which you'll get to hear about a little bit later when you see the interview. And trust me, watch the interview, it is just magic. And a couple of weeks ago, you know, it was Shivratri, which was the night of Shiva. I saw it on my sister's Facebook wall, you know, she had posted something about it. Thank you, Jyoti. I didn't know until I saw your post. Anyways, I'd seen it on her wall and I just had this kind of ditty going around in my head. It's something that I've heard many years ago, and it's quite an intense and heavy feeling melody. But it is just beautiful. It resonates so beautifully. And when I got playing it, I started to layer it up, and I'm playing quite simple stuff, but when you hear how everything comes together, it's just amazing. And as you heard from the playthrough, you know, you've got this huge sound coming out at the end of it, simply from playing octaves, and you know, the single notes and things like that. It's just fabulous. So I am gonna walk you through how I came up with that and did it, and the three different guitar parts which are layering up in the octaves in order to create that sound, that really strong masala sound. I'm using a very specific scale for this as well this time, which I shall show you as well. And today you might see some lights back here. I'm actually using a new guitar. Yeah! I am using this absolutely amazing Vola Zenith guitar, which is part of the studio now, and which you're going to see a lot of because, you know what, it's my Billy Chickle. It is the Billy Chickle Masala guitar, man. You know it is, isn't it? I know you want to see this masala guitar lick, and I'm going to show you how to play it. Let's get going with it, and then I'm going to show you this interview with Raj. Stick around for that because it is phenomenal. Yeah! Let's get doing this. Masala guitar. What a wonderful guitar that Vola have made. The Vola Zenith rather than the Zola Zenith, as I was just about to say. Just gorgeous. I'm going to do a full video of this guitar in a week or so that you can see all of the sounds it is capable of producing. If you haven't seen the unboxing already, I'll leave a link somewhere up here so that you can go and check that out, because it was very cool getting this guitar and plugging it in and just seeing the variety of awesome tones and the sustain and everything. Just beautiful. Also, I am using a new pedal today. Yeah! Red guitar, chili pickle colored guitar requires a chili pickle colored pedal, doesn't it? Yeah! So this is a very cool pedal by a company called Jeds Peds. You can find them at jedspeds.co.uk. And basically they're pedal kits. You get the kit and you build it, and at the end of it you have a phenomenal sounding pedal. Hopefully, fingers crossed, as long as you get all the stuff right inside. I did. I built this yesterday. This kit is called The Hat. I will let you guys go to jedspeds.co.uk and check that out and find out which pedal it is inspired by. Leave a comment in the comments box below and let me know what you think of the sound, because I think it sounds awesome. Beautiful crunchy tone. Anyway, shout out for Jeds Peds for these awesome pedal kits that you can go and check out. Alrighty, so when I did this little ditty, I had something very, very specific in mind, and it was this interval of doing which created the backbone of this. But there are a number of layers which are happening within the track. Firstly, the rhythm tracks. Now, it's very, very, very simple. I was just playing an E power chord, which is the low E string, 2nd fret of the A string, D string, muting out the G string, and then the open high E string and the B string. And all I was doing, I was just raking my pickup. And then at the end I did this, which kind of mirrored that little melody that I did, which was I was just picking the 0-0 on the A string D string, going to the 3rd fret of the A string D string, back to the 2nd fret of the A string D string. Just mirrors that tonality. So that's what I was doing there. Now the interesting thing was the first guitar part that I did, I was playing on the bridge humbucker. And like I said, I was raking up the strings. But I was also moving the pick. I was moving it towards the bridge so that I'd get a sharper tone. And that really brought out different harmonics in the strings and the guitar and created that wonderful rhythm guitar part. Now I use these fantastic chicken picks, which are just awesome, and they're made of this indestructible kind of material which is just fantastic, and they flow over the strings really well. So I can actually pick right by the bridge where the string tension is actually really, really high, and it just, you know, goes through the string and lets it ring out. So it's doing that. Now one of the things that I do when I rake up from near the bridge is as I reach the low string, I'm actually coming towards the pickup and away from the bridge. The reason I do that is because if I just rake up towards here, you don't get a whole lot of volume from the low string. So I'm kind of going in this little arc, going from here, going up towards there. Now the second guitar part, the one on the right hand side, what I did was I flicked over my selector switch to position 2, which is my bridge humbucker in split coil mode. There's a super switch in this, so it basically just splits the coil. So it gave me a sharper sound, which sounded like this. So it was the combination of those two sounds which actually created that vibe, that backbone for the track. Alrighty, over to the octave parts. Now, I was playing some really, really simple octave parts, and this little melody was in my mind, and I was kind of figuring out kind of scales and patterns afterwards, and I kind of figured that apart from the 7th, which I'm starting on just a regular 7th, this D note on the A string, I was actually playing a very, very specific scale, a very specific tonality, which you heard me kind of noodling right at the beginning of the explanation, which was like this. So what I did there was I'm actually changing up a couple of notes. I'm playing in a kind of, you know, a hybrid major minor kind of key type thing, you know. And like I've said before on Masala Guitar, this is one of the beautiful things about Eastern music. There's this kind of fluidity between major and minor. There aren't necessarily kind of distinctions that you have to do one or the other. If you're playing the ragas, then they're very set forms. You can play specific notes going up and specific notes going down certain times of the day, etc., etc. When you're kind of just improvising like this, and you actually just break down the scale pattern and the way we think kind of in terms of Western scale patterns, then you start to see that there's this kind of crossover, this liquidity between major and minor. So what I'm doing is I'm starting off on my E note here on the A string, and I'm tuned half step down, so it's an E flat. And then rather than going to my regular second, if I was playing, let's say, minor scale, I'm actually going to a flattened second. Then I'm actually skipping over the fourth note. I'm not playing the fourth at all, which actually makes the scale 6 notes instead of 7. And I'm going to a flattened fifth. Then I'm going to the sixth. Then I'm going to a sharp 7. So we've got 3 differing notes there. So I'm playing flattened second, flattened fifth, and a sharp 7. So 3 notes. And I'll show you where they are. So I'll play my first, flattened second, my third, skip over my fourth, flattened fifth, then over to my sixth, sharp 7, and then back to my root note on my octave. Just an interesting little thing that you can kind of play around with. Now, if you remember what I did last time on Masala Guitar, got the same progression, right? You have those 3 notes right next to each other. So we're kind of playing around with that same tonality. Now when I did the melody, I actually used a regular 7th. So I'm actually starting off within the minor scale. So I could play just regular kind of minor stuff and blues stuff and etc., etc. So what I did first of all there was I actually started off with the octave, the first octave that I did. I'm starting off on the 5th fret of the A string and the 7th fret of the G string, and I'm muting out the D string, and I'm only picking the A string and the G string. I'm actually picking the D string as well, but because it's muted, you don't hear it. So how I do this is I basically just keep my finger relatively flat without actually pressing the note down, so that it's just resting on the D string and it's muting it out. If I press it down too much, I'll hear the note, which I don't want to do. Alright, so I'll start off on this, the 5 and the 7, and what I'm going to do is then slide that up to the 7 and the 9. Nice amount of oscillation there. Yeah, that's it. Good, man. And then I kind of picked there. Then I went back to the 5 and 7. Now this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide up to the 8 and the 10. Then back to the 7 and 9. That creates my melody. It's a very, very basic thing, but when you add it in with it starts to work its magic. Both parts are working together. Now right at the end of that, what I did was this. Start off the same. Then I'm going to the 11 and the 13 on the same strings, A string and the G string. 12, 14. 15, 17. Then back to 14, 16. So that was the whole of that first part. Now when I did the second part, what I did was I actually did it a full true fifth above every single note that I was playing. So you can kind of think about this in terms of like power chords, because when we play power chords, we actually play the first, the fifth, and then the octave. So essentially what I was doing was I was going to the fifth, and I was making octaves of those as well. So I was kind of following the same pattern that I was playing. So I played this. So here what I'm doing is I'm playing on the D string and the B string, and I'm muting out the G string this time. So the first octave starts off on the 7th fret of the D string, and it's going to be the 10th fret of the B string. We're just adjusting for the tuning thing between the G string, B string. So that's the 7 and the 10. So I'm going to start off on that, and then I'm going to slide this up to the 9 and the 12. Then back to the 7, 10. This time up to the 10 and the 13. Then back to the 9 and 12. So that's going to create my second melody there. And I ended this one by doing this. So again, same strings, octaves again. The first octave is the 13th fret of the D and the 16 on the B. Then 14, 17. Then 17, 20. And then back one fret, so this time I'm doing 16 and 19. So that was the whole of that second octave part I did. And then I was doing one more repeat, and I kind of figured, you know what, I'm going to put a third octave part in there as well. And this one was a little bit different, so it actually went like this. So the intervals are slightly different this time. I started off on the 10th fret of the G string. I'm actually muting out the B string this time, and I'm on the 13th fret of the E string. So from here I'm actually going to go up 3 frets. So I'm going to play that, the 10 and 13. And then I'm going to go to the 13 and the 16 on the G and the B. Sorry, G and the E. So I'm immediately jumping up 1.5 steps there. Then I went back to the 10 and the 13. Now I skip up to the 14 and the 17. Then back to the 13, 16. And when I came to the end of this one, what I did was went to the 16 and 19. The 17, 20, the 19 and 22. Couldn't go up any higher, so I went back one to the 17 and the 20. And then I ended by coming to this this one, the 13 and the 16. And those were the layers within this this melody. It worked so beautifully well, and just kind of combines and just creates that vibe. It's quite a heavy vibe, but also it's almost hypnotic. It's meditative, you know, and that's what devotional songs are essentially. They evoke that kind of response, especially in India, in Eastern culture. The mantras and chants that people do, they're very, very specific in order to get you to a heightened state. So there you go, there's that melody. Alrighty, time for the interview now. Trust me, you're going to want to watch this because it was such a good masala conversation, man. Yeah, it was just absolutely awesome. So presenting one of my closest friends ever, amazing guitar player, amazing musician, amazing songwriter, and such beautiful knowledge, Raj Makwana. Check this out. So folks, today I have an extremely special guest, the guitarist from this band, my brother Raj Makwana. Now I just want to put this into context. Raj is an awesome guy, love this guy. He's one of my closest friends ever. You'll hear the story about why in a second. But also because he's the reason I actually picked up guitar in the first place. If it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't be playing guitar today. So, ladies and gentlemen, Raj Makwana, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Jay, that is a very nice thing for you to say. I'm glad to be on Masala Guitar. Look at that.
Masala Guitar, man.
There it is. I'm very stoked, and thank you very much for that kind intro.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. You know, you've been. I know you won't. You'll say that I'm just, you know, telling fibs and stuff, but you literally have been the biggest influence in my guitar life from the beginning. So you know, thank you for that.
Stop fibbing. That's very kind of you to say, but it's you know, thanks, man. Very, very nice of you to say. I will not own that.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. I'll own it for you. Yeah.
Fair enough.
The folks know the truth. The folks know the truth.
Yeah.
So we've known each other for quite a while, right? I'm going to let you tell the story about how we know each other. Actually.
Well, so I've known Jay since the day he was born, and that is a true story. His parents and my parents, they lived in the same house in London, in our hometown of Shepherd's Bush. And I saw this baby, future rock god, being brought into the house. And we used to, you know, tie little towels around us as he was growing up, pretend with Superman and Batman and all of that kind of crazy stuff. And you know, when you meet a brother and you just stay in touch all these years, we're still about as close as can be after all of this time. You know,
absolutely. Absolutely. And obviously, now in 1977, you guys moved to America, didn't you? So I didn't see you for quite a while.
Yeah, and that was interesting because, you know, our families were friends, and Jay and I and my brother and sister and his sister, we're all friends and, you know, very tight. So in the 77, we moved to the U.S., to Los Angeles. And we kind of, I think our parents stayed in touch, but I think us as the kids, we didn't really stay in touch. You know, obviously this is pre-internet, pre-email, pre-anything like that.
Yeah.
And then I remember, was it 85-ish, 84-ish maybe?
No, we hooked up again in mid-90s. I think.
Oh, is it 90s? Okay.
Yeah, it was 96 when I came to Los Angeles first time. But, you know, your dad did come to the UK in about 85, 86. And he actually gave me a copy of this, which was your first album, right? And
yeah, that needs to be burned.
Sure. You know, it's a bit of history. You know? And it was, you know, he was telling me about how you were a guitar player in a band, and, you know, you were being a rock star and stuff. And it was like, oh, Wow, I want to do that when I grow up.
Well, it was one of those things. Like I knew Bill C, who is the singer in the band, and George Edmondson. So Bill C's that guy. George Edmondson is on the far corner. Yep, and that's Brad Holtzman. George is the bass player. That's Brad, and then I'm the guy on the other end. Bill, George, and I knew each other since middle school. And we were all music lovers, and I think it was in 10th grade maybe, or 11th grade, we started a band. Oh, actually, I guess that band started later. We played around a little bit, doing nothing. I could not play to save my life. You know, my parents bought me a Fender Mustang from a yard sale.
Oh, wow, right.
Yeah, it's great. I still have that guitar. But it was one of those that has the bridge, the tension bridge. So when you play and you break a string, the whole guitar goes out of tune.
Kind of the precursor to the Floyd Rose.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you're like me and you don't know how to play and you're trying to do whatever hard thing, you break strings left and right. And so I did not have a backup guitar. And so the band, that record is. It's just a bunch of four guys who think they can play, but really are, trying to learn how to play.
But it's great listening to it because that turned into this, didn't it? Divine Weeks. Yeah. So the Need, that first band, we kind of had to look at ourselves and say, we need to change. We need to be better, and we need to take our art a little bit more seriously. And as songwriters and as performers, that takes time. That takes time to do, and it also takes a commitment. And so we started to really look inwards and write together a little bit more frequently, and write material that meant more to us and hopefully would translate to others as well. But that's when I would say with that album, that's when I would probably the first time I could say, we were starting to really become legitimate songwriters and players at that point. The record, unfortunately, we don't sound superbly good on it, but the benefit of it was we played a lot right before that and after that. And that's the only way, in my mind, you can get better, right? Is a lot individually, but also as a band, so you can form that bond together. Right, absolutely, yeah. And that camaraderie and getting to know each other as musicians and how each other plays and playing in the pocket of, with each other.
It's a critical element. You see a lot of bands play, and there's some young bands that some kids at my son's school who playing and have asked me hey, what does it take? What does it sound? And there's so much advice you can give a young musician, but I think the biggest advice is practice and just listen not only to yourself. If you're playing with other people, listen to what they're doing, so you're not playing over them. And if you have aspirations to be in a band, be in a band. Don't be one guy. Make it all cohesive.
Right, absolutely. Now, obviously, we're here to talk about Masala Guitar, which
keeping it spicy over here, Jay. Keeping it spicy.
That's cool shit, man.
Yes. Thank you for sending that to me.
You're welcome,
my son for it. Yeah.
Oh, they'll get this. Now, obviously, we're both of Indian heritage. How did that influence your playing and your writing? One of my most vivid memories was actually finding a live version of one of your songs. Can't remember when. It was many moons ago, in the infancy of the internet and stuff, and just doing a web search and then finding this MP3 somewhere. It was and I didn't know it was you who was playing until I heard a little kind of a ditty, and it literally was it was like a devotional song which you were playing the melody to. And as soon as I heard it, it was like, that's it. That's Raj playing. I know it's Raj playing. That's it. But how did that influence you?
Yeah, and I think you remember, right? Remember when we were growing up, there was always Indian music playing in the house, right?
Right.
My parents would play, and my mom, who is an accomplished singer and also a musician, she plays harmonium. She would play in the house, typically on weekends a lot. And it was, we just heard it. It was just always in our consciousness. And my mom's family, their history is back in India. They make the keys to harmoniums.
Wow.
Tone keys.
Right.
Doing that ever since. So she's had this music in her blood, and would always be singing, when she's at home, picking us up, walking to school, and would play harmonium on weekends all the time. So I think, we're sitting there as kids when we're playing, and it just stays in your head, and you hear these, tonalities. And I didn't realize at the time that that was something that I would have made such an impact on me. But then as you grow up and you play, you go to the first thing you do as a player is you play what you're comfortable with.
Right.
And, you start playing this, this little Indian riff, and obviously in Indian music, there's a lot of droning going on, which is, in our band, we were primarily a one guitar band. So when you're in a one guitar band, you have to fill the sound. And so I started droning a lot, and I could sort of narrow that down into being around my mom and hearing that, growing up. And so when I started playing, it was like, well, you're in your room and you're playing, and I was never very good or very fast. So the only way to make it sound good was add in a drone, and then you start doing these half steps and these other tonalities. Like, wow, that sounds really good, and what happens if I just let this ring out? And I think that was something I know I still carry today. That's been probably my primary influence in terms of approach to music, for sure.
Sure. And that something we were talking about earlier, where we were talking about how you construct these really intricate rhythms, which, it'll be 3 or 4 different parts, all slightly different, but coming together to make this enormous whole, just this soundscape.
Yeah. And, it's interesting. Thanks for saying that, Jay. You and I have talked a lot about that music theory. And so, there's 2 sides of it, right? The first side of music construction is how do you attack your instrument? Let's say it's guitar. What are your influences there? So obviously I've purloined from Pete Townsend and The Edge and some other players. But then the other part of it is composition. How do you compose something? And when you listen to indie music, there's always, these weird rhythms going on, and the sitar or whatever it is, and even the vocals kind of going on. That's my cat in the background.
That's okay.
You hear these, different things happening, but they all are part of one.
Right.
And it's interesting because growing up, I had the Indian thing, but also, as you know, I'm a big Beatles fan, and you listen to like what George Martin has done with their production, right? And where the song is really, and I hate to use this overused phrase, but the song is a journey, and it goes from A to B. And the first verse and the second verse, do they have to sound the same? No.
Right.
An extra layer? Yeah. Does that add, if it adds to the song, sure, why not? And I don't know if you remember when we were kids, Jay and I would, and my brother, we would watch Looney Tunes cartoons all the time.
Right.
We'd watch, Sylvester getting an anvil on his head. The reason I bring that up is these were snippets of music. So many, many years ago, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, Jay, many years ago, in the 80s sometime, I bought a CD of the guy that did the music called Stalin.
Oh, right? Cool.
So you listen to it and you pop it in your player, and it's kind of like, not outtakes, but you hear him counting off and everything. And the kid is da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and you go, that's when Sylvester just got the anvil on his head. And you don't, but you're listening. And you hear like these little bump, 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 bump. And as dumb as this sounds, it taught me like how to make, be mindful of the vision that music creates. I don't play anything like that, but it did, when people listen to music, it has a visual impact on them. You got to visualize something. And sure, all of that was fun, and you visualize an anvil on someone's head, but you can also make it to, you can visualize hugging your sweetheart. You can visualize being with family. You can visualize taking a long drive, whatever it is. And I think those three components help me to this day still try to teach me about how to compose that whole aspect of the song.
Right, right. And you're right. I think that's something I picked up from your playing a lot, which is tell a story with whatever you're playing. You know, whether it's an instrumental, whether it's a song with vocals, keep it moving, you know, keep it evolving, because it is a little story in itself. It's a little movie in itself. And, you know, back in the early days, I was very kind of influenced by soundtrack music, and that's the same. You know, it creates...
That's exactly the same. Yeah.
So important. That's really interesting what you were saying about the Indian music influencing it as well, because when you listen to like bhajans, which are devotional songs, you obviously have a number of instruments doing their thing, but it's creating this whole. It's like it's different from a band situation where you have, you know, obviously drums, bass, guitar, and vocals. There is much more kind of I don't know what word to use for this. There's just this synergy between all of the music and the instruments, and they're all doing these little parts which come together. They're all playing the same melody in a little bit different way. Is that?
And that's a great way of putting it. They all supporting each other. You know,
right?
You can have, like you were saying earlier, you can have your, you know, 5% of the song be a lead, but that rhythm doesn't go away, right? You know, you still need something to support it, and then the other, as you were saying, the other 95% of the song, you want to continue the story. You want to continue engaging the listener. And I remember that when you came over in the 90s and you brought your guitar over, and we were sitting in my brother's room and you were playing, and it was like I could see that evolution of a part that you're playing, right? And that's one of the first things, my memories of you.
Right.
Oh, it's not just a guy who's just like, you know, jamming like he's at Guitar Center or something. You know, it is this, you know, conveyance of an emotion, of a feeling of a song, and every song can have a different emotion, but it's that journey, right, that you're playing. And I remember thinking that, and you've gone, wow, yeah, that's really pretty impactful.
That's very, very kind of you. I actually was trying to be the guy in Guitar Center. I was failing miserably at the time, by the way.
Well, I remember we did go to Guitar Center a lot in Hollywood.
Oh, we did, yeah. Yeah.
Right. Pretty much, you know. Yeah, I'll pay you next Tuesday.
Yeah, there you go. Now, one of the times I really noticed that within your playing was when I mixed the single Holes for you guys for Divine Weeks about 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
And it was just a fascinating experience for me from the perspective of seeing, you know, and hearing and visualizing on my screen, as well as hearing it through my speakers, how you construct a rhythm part. A single part sounded very, very kind of single part, but when I listened to the whole, because there were like 3 or 4 different parts playing, it created this absolute magnificent ambience. And, you know, if I took one part out, then the whole thing would kind of just change. It would just be something completely different. Is that something that is just naturally part of your playing, or is it something that you kind of developed over time?
I think, again, that's where I could point to the Indian music, right? It's taken time to develop, and I still work at it. But thank you for noticing that, because that's we have a little visitor here.
Hey.
Say hi. It took some time to develop, and I still work at it. But you're right. I think that is from the Indian music, where you listen to it and you just have treats, right? Little Easter eggs going on here and there as you listen to the music. But again, it doesn't make any sense to me as a writer to say this is the dominant and everything else should be subordinate. It makes sense to say, hey, you've got all of these options for sounds, and why not create that synergy? Why not have one part do this? And it's tough because when we record, obviously when you record, you can do overdubs. And I typically don't do too many, but I'll do 2 or 3 or something, or some power chords. But when I play live, I find that I have to listen to what I did on record and say, okay, I better learn how to play that bit at that part of the verse and this bit at that part of the chorus, and try to bring those out, and at the same time have that drone, that Indian drone going on that supports it rhythmically, so you have that consistency as well.
Right, and it keeps it moving. And it's the one wonderful thing about watching you guys play. I've never seen you guys play in person. But anyways, sort of different story altogether. But just watching the videos of you guys play live, and also just listening to your albums. You've done a couple of albums over the last couple of years. It's that kind of, it's the energy there. There's that kind of thing that where you just want to stand up and jump about, and you know, it's just so. And I think that's what it is in the playing. It's that whole thing about everything it continues to move, evolve.
Yeah, I think it's important, not only just as a performer, but even, you know, ultimately you want people to enjoy what you're playing. You don't want them to be bored by it. And I find that even if there's types of music that I don't necessarily listen to on a regular basis, but when I see a band or an artist in that genre really taking you for a trip and a journey and having other elements in there and giving you that energy, you've got to bow down to that and say, you know, you are an artist for sure. And I think I learned that over time. It was easy for me to say, oh, I don't like X type of music or Y type of music. But then when you listen, like, really get into the mind of what the performer's trying to give you. For us, you know, I'm very, very lucky that I have a guitar, I can play, I've got people I can play with, and you know, I can pick up a guitar anytime, and every time you play, like, it's got to mean something. You know, it has to come from your heart and from your mind, and whatever emotion you're in. You know, it's okay to pour that into the song. You know, and not that every song has to be some epic thing. It could be a little 3-minute, you know, woolly bully, I guess. You know, but
right.
It's okay as long as you are taking that seriously and not just going through emotion, because rhythm counts. You know.
Yeah, definitely. And that 3-minute thing brings us back to the Beatles, which their songs are very short. You know, it was kind of like, get in there, do it, goodbye, next song. Right, in and out, you know. And I listen to some of these Beatles songs, and as you know, Jay, I've tortured Jay with Beatles songs every time we get together, and I'm playing all the time. Love Beatles.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things you listen to it and you go, you know, well, she loves you and all this, and yeah, you know, it's bubblegum. And then you really break it down and you listen to that last vocal chord where they're doing, you know, it's not a major, it's like a 7th vocally that they do, yeah, and you listen to that and you go, you can't help but be influenced by these guys and the producer George Mayan that were really trying to do elements. There's one of my favorite songs by them is Tomorrow Never Knows.
Oh, that's my favorite song by them. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah. And you just listen to, there's this, you know, incessant drum beat and a C note on the bass, but every verse sounds different. And then you listen, and out of nowhere, there's a 2-second recorder part, and just, and you just realize how George Mayan and John Lennon and Paul McCartney, like, put these layers on just to keep you surprised. And I think there's so much similarities in that with Indian music as well.
I was about to say that epitomizes that Indian influence for me within their music. You know, it's so kind of vividly visible within that track. That's why I love it. It's just that dum ba dum ba dum.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's almost like you have the, you know, a door or tabla playing or something. You can instantly, you could add it to that track and it would just work.
Absolutely. And that's, you know, that's the whole thing is, but you know, what's interesting about that track is with everything going on, it is still very wide open. Right? Yeah. And it took me many, many years to figure out how to play. And I'm still trying to figure it out, how to play without cluttering the sound. So you want to add all this stuff in, but you also want it to be open. You don't want to assault the listener the whole time, because when you play a note, you know, it's like you do, like you and I have talked before. There's sometimes I hear you play and you play these riffs, and then you'll just hold this note, and it's like, wow, he's making that note mean something. And I'll pick up on that going, wow, Jay's really, he's taking you, and then you can tell, like, he's taking you here, and then he's just going to make you turn left, turn here.
Right.
Music, right? Is that take that listener by surprise every now and then.
Yeah, yeah. And
keep it open.
I think that's really important within music, and it's something I did subconsciously pick up from Indian music, because obviously the rags are there to evoke an emotion. They're very specifically, they're written to be played at a specific time, to evoke a specific mood, specific notes, and it also allows the music to breathe. And
Absolutely.
I guess it's about keeping conscious for the listener's sake as well.
Mm-hmm.
Great for a guitar player just to kind of whittle and noodle and play a million notes, but if you have an audience worth of guitar players, then great, they're going to love it. But
great.
when you're at a gig, usually you're going to have some people who aren't musicians there, right?
Absolutely. You hope so. Yeah, you hope so.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. That's a good way to put it, is just to, not treat music like a listener. When you're writing, treat it like a listener, not necessarily like, oh, I'm going to enjoy playing a 10-minute riff. Maybe someone's not going to enjoy hearing that. And
right.
If you want your music to transcend, and yeah, you're right. Some of these ragas last 15 minutes, and they don't kick off until 5 minutes in. They've got a drone going on for 5 minutes, and
right.
I remember listening as a kid, and these drones, really all they're doing is trying to get you out of your other headspace and into this new headspace, and be ready to take on this growth that's about to happen.
Right. That's really interesting. Right. And
yeah,
I guess that's something. Is that something that also influenced how you approach writing music? Because obviously there's a combination of East and West there. There's a lot of Eastern philosophy, but also the Western sound within your music.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely has influenced me on how I write. Obviously, when I play, we do occasionally have some long songs, 5-6 minute songs. I wish I could write like a 3-minute great tune, but I don't know if I'm capable of that, because I do often think about, I've got to grow. I call it the personality of the song, from birth to death, if you will, or from birth to maturity. Sometimes that does take time to do.
Right.
Granted, typically I'm coming in about 4.5 minutes. And when we write, we're very conscious of that maturation process of the song, and that you can start sparse and you can end sparse as well if you like. But make sure that there's something going on that is helping you get in a mindset, right?
Right.
And I feel every listener, sometimes they say, oh, you can listen to a song in the first 10 seconds, if you like it or not. I remember hearing a quote, and I think it was from an Indian artist, an Indian musician, and she was saying, first, in modern pop culture, in rock culture, which is, I primarily play rock music, alt rock, is that you still, just because you're playing a different genre of music doesn't mean that you can't help somebody get into a mindset. Music is meant to take you and anybody that's you're fortunate enough to have you listen to it on a mindset, right?
Yeah.
Happy, sad, emotion, whatever it is. And yeah, I would say that's influenced me. I cannot write without thinking about that every time.
Cool. I spoke with Rowan Robertson from Dio.
Great guy. Yeah, my gosh, that interview was fantastic. He seems like such a great guy.
He's such a cool guy, and he mentioned George Harrison, who I know inspired you an enormous amount. Correct?
Correct. George was the first one, really, I think, to blend East and West sensibilities in music. And when I listen to George Harrison play, you hear him doing these drones while, you know, the other guys in the band is doing more traditional stuff. You know, some of, like you pointed out, some of the most Eastern songs are not the George Harrison big raga songs that he's done. You know, there's some like Tomorrow Never Knows or what other ones that he inserts that whole, you know, frame set into the song. And that to me is just something I always aspire to do. I'm still learning, like, how do you take that Eastern and blend it with the West like George Harrison did, or, you know, somebody. And I was really surprised to hear Rowan say that. I was, you know, the interview was so great.
Right. And I guess we imbue that little bit of kind of that culture that we grew up with within our music just naturally. It just, there's that essence of it. And for me, that's always important when we're doing a fusion of music, rather than actually going completely East or going completely West. I like to blend the two and just put a little bit of spice over the top, which is what Masala Guitar's about, right?
Masala Guitar, absolutely. Yeah.
It's just that having that little essence of it, rather than, you know, saying, well, this is the style of music, here you go.
And that's a good point, Jay. You know, it's like the essence of these sensibilities, right? And having a little spice, as you said, on top. Like that's very mature as a musician, you know, to say, like, it doesn't, I don't want to play rock or punk or metal or whatever it is. I want to play what I'm influenced by. And it is all of these different things, but how it all blends together, you know, along with the Eastern stuff. That's, you know, you're absolutely right about that. You know, it's hard to do.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we keep plugging away, we keep playing, and we keep trying, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All the time. Never give up. Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's great advice. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This, you know, it's major special for me for obvious reasons. And, you know,
thank you, Jay.
Folks, you know, Raj and I hook up every year when I come to Los Angeles for NAMM and stuff. We just hang out for a few days and go to Guitar Center, right? We still go to Guitar Center.
Yeah, I think we drove past it last time, but thank you for having me, Jay.
There's Guitar Center. Hide your face.
Yeah, hide your face. Yeah, really. Thank you for having me. You're a friend and musician, and it's just an honor to be on your show.
Thank you so much, man. Now, wasn't that incredible? Absolutely amazing conversation I had with him. I love this guy. He's a brother to me. You know, well, you guys know how long he's known me, how long we've known each other now, and you know, just such a deep guy, and his music is just absolutely beautiful. You can check out Divine Weeks at their website. I'll leave the link in the description box below and flash it up somewhere down here as well, so you can go and check out their music and what they do. And, you know, it's just amazing listening to how Raj layers up all of this stuff. And, you know, it comes from that ethos, that Eastern ethos, that Masala ethos, man. You know you want it, isn't it? Masala Guitar. Remember to pick up your t-shirt, by the way. And if you do, please do take a photo and send it to me so that I can show everyone else. And talking about that, there are 2 people who did send in pictures. So check this out. Shout out for Dave and Kay with their awesome Masala Guitar t-shirts. Yeah, you can get them at the link up here. Yeah. And they look so cool in their t-shirts. Yeah. Awesome, guys. Have a fantastic day. I hope that was helpful. I would love to hear your thoughts on it, so leave a comment in the comments box below, and remember to go and check out Jeds Peds, and tell me what you think of the pedal and how it sounds and stuff, and which pedal it is. Yeah, which pedal has inspired this one. And I have my chili pickle red Vola guitar now, which is awesome. My Masala Guitar and my Masala pedal, because it's red as well, isn't it, man? If you have a red guitar, you could have a red pedal, man. That's just the law, isn't it? Yeah. Have a fantastic day, guys. If you haven't done so already, please do subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification so you know when new videos come out. and also give the video a thumbs up and share it with your friends as well. And let's get lots of people coming down here and checking out Masala guitar licks, man. Yeah, you know you want to. And if you would like to support the channel as well, you can go ahead and check out the t-shirts or my Patreon, and all the links are below, and you can go and check all of that out. Have a phenomenal day, guys. I am going to show you that little melody again. Yeah, enjoy it, and I shall see you next time for another Masala Guitar. Yeah, you know you want to, man. You know you want to. See ya.